In a small, dimly lit apartment nestled in the heart of the city, Jackson Jack Knight sat at his cluttered desk, smirking at his computer screen. His reputation as a skilled con artist preceded him, and his scams had netted him a fortune. It wasn't always about the money, though. For Jack, the thrill of outwitting people, of dancing circles around their trust, was intoxicating. Over the years, Jack had honed his craft. He could sweet-talk his way into anyone's good graces, dig into their vulnerabilities, and siphon their money or personal information before they even knew what hit them. Whether it was a fake business deal, a love scam, or an inheritance scheme, Jack was a master. He was invincible. At least, that's what he thought. Tonight, he had a fresh target. Her name was Eva Martins. Jack had found her profile on a business networking site. She looked wealthy, successful, and most importantly unsuspecting. She was the CEO of a large tech company, and Jack figured she had more money than she knew what to do with. It was the perfect setup for one of his high-end investment schemes. All he needed was to make her believe that he had an opportunity too good to pass up. Jack crafted the perfect email. It was loaded with industry jargon, promises of exponential returns, and an urgency that would make anyone fear missing out. It was a baited hook, designed to reel in even the most cautious of fish. He clicked send and leaned back, satisfied with his work. "Let's see how long it takes you to bite," he muttered to himself. To Jack's surprise, Eva responded within the hour. Her reply was polite, yet intrigued, asking for more details. Jack's eyes sparkled. "Gotcha," he whispered. Over the next few days, Jack and Eva exchanged emails. She seemed genuinely interested in the investment, but she wanted to meet in person to discuss it further. Jack hesitated for a moment. His scams rarely involved face-to-face meetings. He preferred the anonymity of the internet, but Eva seemed too good an opportunity to pass up. Besides, he'd charmed dozens of people in person before. This would be no different. They arranged to meet at a high-end restaurant downtown, a place where power brokers and business elites gathered. Jack put on his best suit, slicked back his hair, and practiced his winning smile in the mirror. This is going to be too easy, he thought. The restaurant was as posh as Jack had imagined: crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and waiters in tuxedos. He spotted Eva sitting at a corner table, her sharp eyes scanning the room. She looked every bit the powerful CEO, with a commanding presence that made Jack feel like he was the one being sized up. "Miss Martins," Jack said smoothly as he approached the table, offering his hand. She shook it firmly. "Please, call me Eva," she said with a smile. There was something about the way she looked at him, something that made Jack pause, but he quickly brushed it off. He had a role to play, and he was going to play it perfectly. They ordered drinks, and Jack launched into his pitch. He spoke confidently, weaving a story about a lucrative opportunity in a tech startup that was about to explode. Eva listened intently, nodding at all the right moments. She asked insightful questions, which Jack answered with ease. By the time they finished their meal, Jack was certain he had her hooked. "I'm very interested," Eva said, leaning forward slightly. "But before I invest, I'd like to do a little due diligence. You know how it is in business." Jack nodded, keeping his cool. "Of course, take all the time you need." "Excellent," she replied. "I'll have my legal team draft up the paperwork, and we can meet again in a few days." Jack smiled, confident that his payday was just around the corner. A few days later, Jack received an email from Eva's assistant, requesting another meeting. This time, it was at a private office downtown. When Jack arrived, he was greeted by two stern-looking men in suits who led him into a sleek conference room. Eva was already seated at the head of the table, a stack of papers in front of her. "Jack," she said warmly, "I'm glad you could make it." Jack smiled, though something about the setting made him uneasy. He sat down, trying to shake the feeling. "Before we proceed," Eva began, "I had my team look into your investment opportunity. I have to say, it sounded almost too good to be true." Jack felt a bead of sweat form on his forehead. He kept his smile, but his mind raced. What had they found? Eva slid a file across the table. "Imagine my surprise when I discovered that your startup doesn't exist. In fact, neither do most of the companies you've mentioned." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He reached for the file with trembling hands, flipping through the pages. It was all there: his fake companies, his fraudulent schemes, his entire con laid bare. "I have to admit," Eva said, leaning back in her chair, "you're good. Very good. But you made one mistake." "Jack." He looked up, his face pale. "What mistake?" Eva smiled, but this time it wasn't warm. It was cold, calculating. You picked the wrong target. You see, I've been in the game a lot longer than you have. I've seen every scam, every trick, every con there is. And when I spotted your email, I knew exactly what you were up to. Jack's mouth went dry. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Eva continued. I decided to play along, to see how far you'd go. And now that we're here, I have two options. I can turn you over to the authorities, or you can work for me. Jack blinked, completely caught off guard. Work for you? Eva nodded. You have talent, Jack, but you're wasting it on small-time scams. I can offer you something bigger, something more lucrative, but it comes with a price. You work for me, and you never cross me. Ever. Jack sat there, stunned. He had never been on the receiving end of a con before, and he realized that Eva had outplayed him at every turn. He was trapped, with no way out. After a long silence, he nodded. All right. I'm in. From that day forward, Jack worked for Eva. She introduced him to a world of high-stakes deals, corporate espionage, and business manipulation that made his old scams look like child's play. But he never forgot that cold smile, that chilling reminder of who was really in control. He had thought himself invincible, but Eva had taught him the most important lesson of all. There's always someone smarter, always someone one step ahead. And in the world of deception, trust is the most dangerous game of all. Jack had been working for Eva for nearly a year now. Together, they operated in the shadows, orchestrating financial deals and manipulating markets on a scale Jack had never imagined. It was exhilarating far beyond the petty scams he used to run. The money was flowing, and the thrill of being part of something so grand kept Jack on edge. But deep down, he knew he was playing a dangerous game. Eva, with her icy composure and connections in the highest places, seemed untouchable. She always stayed 2 steps ahead, anticipating every move the market or her competitors made. However, Jack had noticed something unsettling. Eva was growing more reckless. She had a habit of pushing the limits, taking risks that made Jack uncomfortable. Yet, he never questioned her. He was too far in to back out now. One day, Eva approached Jack with a new plan, her most ambitious yet. She wanted to siphon millions from a major international corporation using a network of shell companies and offshore accounts. It was a plan that required perfect execution, and the rewards were astronomical. But if something went wrong, the consequences would be severe. Jack hesitated. Eva, this feels too big. We're drawing attention. Eva waved him off. Relax, Jack. I've done this before. We're untouchable. He nodded, but the nagging feeling of impending disaster lingered. Over the next few weeks, they executed the plan meticulously. Everything appeared to be going smoothly. The money was moving through the system, bouncing from one anonymous account to another. Jack watched the digits grow, millions piling up in accounts they controlled. But the sense of unease never left him. One evening, after finalizing the last part of the transaction, Jack received a text from Eva. Meet me at the office. We need to celebrate. He drove to the sleek downtown building where they conducted their operations in secret. As he stepped into the elevator, his heart raced. Something felt off, but he couldn't place it. The door slid open to reveal the dimly lit office, where Eva sat at the head of the long glass table, a bottle of champagne already uncorked. We did it, Jack, she said, raising her glass. We're about to become legends. Jack forced a smile and raised his glass. But just as he brought it to his lips, the door behind him burst open. A team of men in dark suits stormed the room, guns drawn. FBI, everyone on the ground. Jack's stomach dropped. He looked at Eva, but her face remained calm, though her eyes betrayed a flash of anger. For the first time, Jack saw her mask crack. She had not anticipated this. The agents handcuffed them both, reading their rights as they were led out of the office in front of a small crowd of employees and security. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he was shoved into the back of a black SUV. He glanced over at Eva, who sat next to him, her face cold and expressionless. Hours later, Jack found himself sitting in a sterile interrogation room, a bright light glaring down on him. Across the table sat Agent Henry, a seasoned investigator who had been on their trail for months. Jackson King, Henry said, leaning back in his chair. You've been busy. We've been watching you and Eva for quite some time now. Jack swallowed hard, saying nothing. Did you really think you could get away with stealing millions from some of the largest corporations in the world? Henry continued. We've tracked every transaction, every account. You might think you're clever, but you're not invisible. Jack shifted in his seat, knowing there was no point in denying it. Here's the deal, Jack. Eva's been playing you. She's been playing everyone. We've got her on dozens of counts of fraud, money laundering, and insider trading.
We have enough to put her away for life. But you
have a chance to cut a deal. Jack blinked. A deal? Henry nodded.
Testify against her.
Give us everything you know, and we can reduce your sentence. Otherwise, you'll go down with her. And trust me, Eva's not going to do you any favors.
Jack hesitated. He had never imagined being in this position, but deep down, he knew what Eva was capable of.
She had manipulated him from the start, just as she had manipulated so many others.
Still, something inside him resisted. Eva was the closest thing he had to an ally. Even if their relationship was built on lies and deceit. Think about it, Henry said, sliding a folder across the table.
You have a choice to make. Days passed, and Jack sat in his jail cell, weighing his options. He hadn't heard from Eva since their arrest, but he knew she was scheming,
working out her own plan to escape the consequences.
She always did.
But this time, Jack realized she wasn't going to save him. She was going to save herself. He made his decision. When the trial began, it was clear that Eva had no intention of going down quietly.
Her team of high-priced lawyers fought tooth and nail, but the evidence was overwhelming.
Every transaction, every fake company, every shell account, there was no escaping the paper trail they had left behind. And then came Jack's testimony.
When he took the stand, he could feel Eva's icy gaze on him.
Her eyes burned with betrayal, but Jack held his ground. He laid everything out, their schemes, their strategies, and the plan that had ultimately led to their downfall. Eva's calm fard finally cracked. She glared at Jack, her eyes filled with cold fury, as if she were memorizing his face for revenge.
But it was over. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning a guilty verdict. Both Jack and Eva were sentenced to decades in federal prison, their empire of lies crumbling around them.
For Jack, it was a bitter pill to swallow. He had once believed himself untouchable, the ultimate puppet master. But now, he realized, he had been nothing more than a pawn in someone else's game. The lesson learned.
As Jack sat in his prison cell, the walls closing in around him, he reflected on the choices that had led him here. He had lived a life of deception, always looking for the next mark,
the next score. But in the end, it was his greed and arrogance that had brought him down. Eva, too, had believed she was invincible. But no one, no matter how smart or cunning, could escape justice forever. The moral of the story: even the cleverest criminals can't outrun the consequences of their actions.
There's always a price to be paid for deceit and greed. True power comes from honesty, integrity, and a life lived without fear of being caught in a lie.
Both Jack and Eva learned that the hard way, but by then, it was too late. They had built their empire on lies, and in the end, it all came crashing down.